Hey, everybody, welcome to my guest tonight. I'm Jeff Revilla, your host. I've got an amazing guest joining me, Jess MacMillan, the moment marketer, speaker, and keynote, the Uncaged Pod.
She's the spark in the silence, the truth in the tale, turns a fleeting flash into a heartfelt trail. From upstate roots to the uncaged mic, Jess MacMillan shows us how to live life right. It's clarity, courage, connection, and light. I'm my guest tonight with Jeff Revilla, shine bright. She's the moment marketer, bold and true. Let's dive in, Jess. It's all about you. Let's dive in. Let's dive in, Jess. All about you.
Jess, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
You're the first guest that I didn't tell that there was going to be a theme song about you. So hearing it in the moment, what did you think of hearing a theme song about what we're going to talk about tonight?
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I kind of wanted to jam out.
Well, that's a lot of people's reactions. You don't get that all the time when you go onto a new show. This is my guest tonight, and tonight we're going to showcase Jess and tell her story, her hero's journey, and let's see where we end up. But I believe you're in upstate New York and born and raised, or have you been living there your entire life?
Yeah, so I've done a few traveling stints, but I'm born and raised in upstate New York. I've spent my whole life on the border of the US and Canada. So I live quite literally about 5 minutes from the border. So it's always been a part of who I am, is just hopping over to Canada. My closest city is actually Montreal in Quebec instead of Syracuse or Albany. Those are actually downstate to me. So yeah, I'm pretty much born and raised, and now I have my girls and we're all up here. So, and I'm loving it.
You're upstate New York.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it one of those areas in New York where there's like a gray area on the border and you can meander accidentally back and forth?
Yeah, actually, a lot of the times, not tonight, thankfully, but a lot of the times your cell phone service will ding, you're in Canada. And so quite literally, a lot of people here have to make sure that their cell phone plans allow for the international plans, because it'll pick up Canada and then you get charged. So back when you used to have to pay per text message, I'm dating myself here, but this is a long time ago for the young listeners, where you had to pay per text message. It used to be like triple if they picked up on Canadian towers. So you learn your lesson really quick.
You got to be efficient, but also accurate at which towers you're trying to connect to.
Yes. Yeah.
And upstate New York, you started to go to school there, I believe. Was it Potsdam?
Yeah, sorry. So I went to SUNY Potsdam, the State University of New York, which is Potsdam, New York. It's a really small town, but they have a few well-known colleges in the area too. So there's also St. Lawrence University and Clarkson University. So if you're not familiar with SUNY Potsdam, you might know those two other schools in the area.
And when you started, you walked onto campus. Did you know exactly what you wanted to do, or did you have a major declared at that point?
So I actually started as an English teacher, and so I started going to school, and my little sister, who's just a little bit younger than me, she was in high school, and I like to joke that I went to my first student teaching kind of stint, where they kind of break you in and let you know what teaching's all about. And I was unfortunate enough to see what she was like in the classroom, and it was not fun for me. That was not a fun day. So I literally went back to school the next day and changed my major. And so I moved to anthropology. I have a really big interest in people and learning about people and like their history and the culture. And I love traveling. So I have spent some time abroad. I lived in Paris for a little bit. I've lived in Dublin. Lived in Ireland for a little bit. So I've kind of just gone all around. I've been to Florida, stayed a few months there. So, I always come back to upstate New York, but I have this really big passion for just learning about other people. And it actually led me to anthropology. And then I changed my major again and landed into speech communication. And that's just where I fell in love with speaking and public speaking and being on a stage and really speaking to other people to share knowledge with them, but to also kind of be a lighthouse and let them know that I'm listening to them too. And so that's really where it started.
Was there a moment on your journeys, on your travels where you're like, "Oh, okay, I think I wanna speak in front of people. I wanna present information to the world." Was there a moment or did you see something somewhere that really sparked an interest in public speaking?
So actually, my very first speaking kind of person that I was introduced to, my grandpa. I was raised by my grandparents. Quite, we were all quite close, and my grandpa was volunteer of the year. He had his own band, the Stardusters. He's sang at the Lake Placid Olympic Center, the national anthem. So he just loved having a mic. And I mean, if you gave that guy a mic, you were not getting him off the stage anytime soon. And so I grew up with that. But my first memory of really being like, I want to do that. I actually saw Wayne Dyer, and I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's like a spiritualist. He works with Hay House, or he did work with Hay House. He's passed now, but he was on stage speaking about Taoism, and he was barefoot, and he was on stage, and he was just wearing like the coolest. Like, I mean, he looks so relaxed, and he was just wearing these like really flowy clothes, and he had just got off the plane from Hawaii, and he just seemed so zen. And I was like, I want to be that. I want to do that. I want to talk about just go with the flow. And I mean, my talk's not like that now. I'm a lot more energetic than Wayne was on stage that first day, but that's really where my love started.
Did you go back through, like, the course catalog at college and be like, "What is most like Wayne Dyer?" Or,
Yes, yeah.
how do I get into this lifestyle?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And so I actually started my most memorable class, I would say, is persuasive speaking. And so it really tapped into something in me because it also, the professor really used rhetoric principles from Greek philosophers. So I got to do like this anthropologic like type course where it also took in like you could speak on what you wanted and you could be really zen, and then you were also speaking in front of the class. And so this was about 15 years ago, and I still have people come up to me and tell me that they remember my speech from that class. And so I just remember really shining and loving it so much.
Did you have, like, a little area rug and do the presentation barefoot?
Oh, I wish. I wish that was allowed. You trust me, I tried to convince the professor, but it was a no-go.
Yeah.
So, if I wanted a 4.0, he said I have to stick to the script.
So you're studying public speaking and media, and you get out of college, and are you drawn towards conferences? Are you drawn towards the stage, or do you kinda fill the gap in between?
Well, so I actually took a left turn and left SUNY Potsdam and ended up going to massage school in Ithaca, New York. So kind of zen and really trying to tap into that spiritual part of myself. And so I went to school there. I completed the program. I tried out as an entrepreneur, um, as a massage therapist, but my passion just wasn't there. So I actually had more success in my massage therapy practice teaching other massage therapists how to market than I did actually putting hands on people. so so that's kind of where it started, was that other spas were tapping into my marketing skills, and I was getting questions on more of the marketing side of things than I was on the spiritual or massage therapy side of things. And so it went from there, and I was kind of struggling to be a massage therapist full time, especially in, a small town, and just dealing with all of the struggles that comes with being in a small town, and being young, and really my first kind of business experience with no business acumen or skills prior. And I ended up taking a job at one of the local credit unions, and I started at the front desk where I was greeting people and basically the face of the company. and a marketing position opened up, and I fell in love with marketing. I excelled. I loved it so much. And so I spent the next few years at that credit union, just really growing as a marketer, taking any sort of class or course I could, because my background is in communication and speaking and writing, and it's not necessarily in design or graphic design or social media or the digital side of things. So, I really just tried to take in as much as I could, and I took a little bit of time away to have my two babies, and now I'm back at a different credit union, but basically running the whole marketing department for them, with 3 branches, and then doing all of the other things that I do on the side.
When you go back to the early days of the massage business and consulting with other massage businesses, what were some of those early techniques and early tips that you were giving away? And did any of that cross over into the financial products and or to the banking industry?
Absolutely. So my biggest takeaway, I think, even for massage therapists, even for solopreneurs now, um, that I work with, it's really all about lifting above the noise. So there's so much going on. People are busy. The feeds are full. I mean, you could scroll for hours and still not see what you're meant to see. And so, um, something that I told the massage therapists were to kind of rise above it. You want to be seen. And so get out into the public. Don't hide. Don't be afraid to call the newspaper. Don't be afraid to send out your own press releases. Newspapers are usually looking, I mean, it's a little bit more outdated, but up here it's still really utilized, the newspapers. And so, even the radio stations, send your press releases out. You don't need to have somebody else do it for you. And so that was my biggest one, was just to get in somebody's face about it and really share what you're all about.
And I gotta imagine banking probably has all kinds of regulations, and you're kinda navigating these waters of, what you're allowed to post, and how do you get through some of those challenges when there's, laws involved and disclosures involved? What are some things that work in banking and meet all those legal requirements?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the number one things that I learned very early on working at the credit union was to cover all your bases. So even if it's not a legal requirement, to still have the disclosure there. And it's actually something that I recommend to a lot of spa owners or massage therapists that I talk to today. Um, when you're going to sign the little form, the intake form of, yes, I agree to have this massage, and I tell the massage therapist to protect themselves. And that goes for anybody that's in business. I wholeheartedly believe that you should have a disclosure somewhere on your website, somewhere, anywhere, just to be able to have that layer of protection. Whether you implement it or not, that's another story, but just to have it there so you can say that you're covered and it's there for people to find. And some a lot of coaches nowadays, podcast hosts, even, on my podcast website, I have a disclosure there saying, anything that you learn is not necessarily, 100% true advice that you need to follow, and, everything with your discretion. And so, I think nowadays it doesn't hurt to cover all your bases.
Do all these little tactics that you're deploying, is this where you develop kind of the thought process behind the moment marketer?
Yeah. So, and it really starts. But my favorite thing to do is learn. And so when I went to school, I learned as much as I could. I took extra classes. I had a major. I had double minors. I read over 100 books the past year. I love learning, and I think it's a testament to anybody who wants an education. To really, there's so many avenues to do it. So whether you're not actually going into a physical school building, but if you're listening to podcasts or you're reading books or you're reading articles or whatever it is. And so, just really getting that knowledge base to start off with. And so one of the books that I read that really shaped the moment marketer is a book by Chip Heath, and it's The Power of Moments. And it really talks about, how we can rise above the noise and the ways to do it. And there are some really successful marketing campaigns that are doing it. And yeah, it's been one of my favorite things to work on. And it's one of my favorite things to work on in the credit union as well. I just love making memories for people because memories are what stick. And that's what keeps somebody coming back for more. If they have a good memory, they're going to want to experience that again and again. And so I believe all marketing should be based around creating memories.
When you're at the bank, do you ever get to meet other business owners, or somebody says, "Hey, Jess does marketing. She's our marketing director. Or do you want to bounce some ideas off her? Do you ever get to talk business or talk shop in the bank?"
All the time. All the time. And so some of my things that I do at the credit union to kind of lift above the noise is I really believe in going out into the community. And so I've kind of made a little bit of a name for myself in the community of the marketing girl that goes around and tells, and you can ask her questions about things. And the credit union also has a podcast that I help created and deploy. And so I have business owners, local business owners, a lot of times, I will just say this, a lot of times credit unions have podcasts where they talk about themselves, or they talk about the financials, or the state of membership, or things that are going on within the credit union. And so the goal of this podcast was to really shift that narrative and bring it out into the community and focus on the leaders in the community. And so a lot of times I'm meeting with these people that are business owners or leaders, just really great people that are hardworking people, and might not necessarily have read all the marketing books I've read.
Have all those interactions, plus being the moment marketer, is that kind of what led you to form the keynote, be the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually took a mic drop workshop class with Jess Ekstrom. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, Jeff, but she has an entire club that's a public speaking club, like Toastmasters used to be, but it's just for women. And so I joined this club, and it's a lot about creating your signature keynote so that way you're ready to talk about it. And so moments and memories have been something that's deeply precious to me, something that I enjoy doing, and something that I love creating for other people. And so Be the Moment was really born out of all of this work. It just accumulation of all my passions come together. And so in the keynote, I actually do speak about kind of the 5 steps of building those memories.
Do you remember, so all, you studied this in college, you're building this experience through different clients. Now you have a keynote. Do you remember the first time you were asked to present that keynote, or how did the first time you got to share that on stage come about?
So I'll take it back to my very first speech that I ever gave. It was a speech that talked a lot about memories and forming memories. And it was a deeply personal. It wasn't necessarily my keynote. It was actually about drunk driving. And so my dad was an alcoholic. He is an alcoholic. And so, but he's been sober for like 14 years. And, I talk a lot about the memories that built my childhood. And so I remember talking about the memories that were made because of alcoholism and how that affects me today, and how much of an impact it should have on somebody else to not get behind the wheel and when they're drunk. And so I would say my very first speech moved me to tears, but it also moved a lot of other people to tears. And that started my speaking career, but it also started where I started collecting memories, because not only did I, reminisce about memories on the stage, but that is a memory in itself of how powerful speaking can be.
One of the things I've picked up from doing this podcast and learning about public speaking is that example you gave is immensely personal to you. It's very
Yeah.
personal, and a lot of people get on stage and they try to relate to everybody, and they try to relate to everybody by telling vague generalities and very like open stories that anybody could and it ends up that nobody relates to general stories. So when you say you told this really personal story, it moved you to tears, it moved the audience to tears. Was it, do you think when you tell a personal story like that, the people in the audience really can hone in and identify their experience and tie it better to your experience than being some general story?
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. So the thing that I talk about and how to create a memory, one of the steps is to connect. And you connect by telling a personal story that will hit someone. Your goal is not to connect with everybody. Your goal is to connect with the right person. And so being able to share a personal story or a pain point or anything, your why, the reason why you created my guest tonight, any of those reasons, that's what you sell. That's what you market and that's what you talk about because that's what's going to make the difference.
So yeah, it's the personal connections, the personal
Yeah.
stories that build rapport with the audience faster than trying to appease everybody. So be yourself, right? Tell your story when you're on stage.
Yeah. Mhm.
So you're busting out with you have clients through the bank, you're going into the community, you're talking, you're up on stage, you have this keynote, and I'm guessing you have all these stories that kind of led you to a newer project that you're launching in July of this month, July 2025. The trailer is already out. Can you give us a little taste of what the Uncaged Pod is going to be about?
Yeah, absolutely. So my memories again of my grandpa with the mic, and then I also had my grandma who was a really strong, bold woman. She raised me to kind of be the same. She was really unfiltered, really unbothered. So one of the stories that I like telling that kind of inspired the whole podcast is my grandma was a bigger woman and she took me out for ice cream. I must have been, I don't know, maybe like 9 or 10. And a man actually came up to her and said, "You're too fat to be eating ice cream." And my grandma laughed in his face, like full blown laughter. And I mean, she went to her deathbed telling that story, laughing about how ridiculous that is that somebody would come up to her and tell her she's too fat for ice cream. Can you imagine somebody being too fat for ice? She goes, "I'm the perfect person to eat ice cream because I'm too fat." And so she used to talk about it all the time in that sense. So it just really left me knowing that I don't need to be bothered by somebody else's opinion. And so I really want women to be able to understand that they don't have to be caged down by this notion that they have to please other people or that somebody else's judgment is the be all end all of their lives. And so it was kind of born out of that. My daughter is turning 1 on July 23rd, and so I thought, what better way to honor my grandma than by giving this podcast sort of like a love letter to my daughter, to both my girls, and to really just, share all of these remarkable stories from all of these women that just really live uncaged like my grandma did. And I have to tell you, Jeff, it went so quick. I opened up my guest recording probably about a month and a half ago. I'm booked out through the end of the year with 2 episodes releasing a week. So like I was not expecting this. I have tried podcasting before, and I got maybe 2 episodes in and then quit. And just because it wasn't the right time and I didn't know what I was doing and I was too busy and I was in school and I was doing all of these other things. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try it out and I'll maybe do like 10 episodes and see how it goes. And I'm already on my 50th tonight. I actually have an interview after this. So it's just going incredibly quick.
How many have you recorded so far?
30.
30.
Yeah.
And when do you have any of them edited, ready to go? Are you going to start
Yeah.
dropping them soon?
Yeah, so July 23rd, I'm dropping the first 3, and then my 4th one will be dropped that Saturday, and then I'll have, new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday with a new woman sharing her story every single Wednesday and Saturday.
Oh, wow. And what's the website?
Yeah, so it's theuncagedpod.com, and, I'm always looking for guests. They won't be released until probably 2026, but if you're interested, you can always fill that out too. I'm a big cheerleader for other women and business owners and allies. And so anybody who wants to come on and share their message with women living uncaged, they're more than welcome to. And yeah, it's been great fun.
And you mentioned your roots are in upstate New York. You have the job, the speaking, the family you're raising, and your hands are full. Right now you got
Yeah.
a busy rest of 2025. But where do you see maybe this podcast or your speaking going in the next 3 to 5 years? Down the road, is there opportunity to travel to conferences, or can people bring you into their world, their conference?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm always open for new bookings. I actually just won an award for marketing from the Marketing Association of Credit Unions, the MAC Awards, as it were. And so I will actually be going down there in October to accept the award on the credit union's behalf. Um, and so, yeah, I'm just always, and that's actually like my third conference in October. I have 2 other ones booked. I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head because it's been a long day, but yeah, that's I'm super busy, but I love it and I love traveling, and I take my girls with me because I think they need to see strong women doing it. And so, yeah, it's a family affair wherever I go.
That's awesome. Yeah, so down the road, more engagements. Taking the podcast on the road is an option, and it sounds like a lot of fun. And looks you're going to have your hands full for the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with a 2-year-old who will be 3 in November and a 1-year-old next week, I am I definitely have my hands full. And I just want to say I have so many things planned. I want to do so many more like marketing things I've got coming down the pipeline. So yeah, stay tuned and definitely follow me on the Uncaged Pod because that's where it'll all be.
That's the best place to hear the podcast. But if they want to connect with you directly, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So hello at theuncagedpod.com is my email. My email goes directly to my phone, and that's literally the only thing that goes directly to my phone. For whatever reason, I do not follow Instagram and Facebook as well as I should for a marketer. I will be the first one to admit it. My social media skills are not up there. So definitely send me an email or message me via the website because I will get it then. But other than that, yeah, I just look forward to connecting with everybody.
This has been a lot of fun. I'm a marketer at heart myself, and to hear the Uncaged Pod coming our way, and I can't wait to see how that grows over the next 6 months. We know you got 50 episodes going to be released, so stay
Yeah.
tuned. Theuncagedpod.com. Jess, let's hear that theme song.
She's the
Awesome.
spark in the silence, the truth in the tale turns a fleeting flash into a heartfelt trail. From upstate roots to the uncaged mic, Jess MacMillan shows us how to live life right. It's clarity, courage, connection, and night. I'm my guest tonight with Revilla shine bright. She's the moment marketer, bold and true. Let's dive in, Jess. It's all about you. Let's dive in. Let's dive in, it's all about you.
I don't know if this counts as upstate New York, but we had our honeymoon at the Finger Lakes, and my wife and I do not know where it was. We can't. We all we know it was in the Finger Lakes, and all we know is when you parked, like the town walked kind of sloped downhill towards the lake, but we don't know what town it was or where we stayed. All we know is we spent like a couple nights in the Finger Lakes. We have no clue where. We try to find it on a map, and we cannot piece together where we were for our honeymoon.
Oh my gosh, I have to tell you that sounds like Ithaca. So Ithaca, the lake is like the lowest part, and then everything else is like built up around it. And so when I went to massage school, it was actually in Ithaca, and the building sat up on a high hill, and you could look down out over the lake. So that sounds just like Ithaca. You might have to look it up.
Maybe that's where we were. All I remember is I left my sweatshirt at the hotel room and they had to mail it back to me. They were really nice about it, but I probably should have looked at the return address.
Yeah, there you go.